Many believers are stuck, bound by their past, by their record, by what's behind them, haunted by it. Their past before the Lord, sometimes their past in the Lord. But God's called you to live a heavenly life, an above life. So what does that mean? That means God wants you to and gives you the power to live above your past, to live above your record, to live above your experiences, to live above your failing, your failures, your falling, to live above it. Too many believers stuck in it, but heaven is above your past. So it doesn't matter what your past was. It doesn't matter that's what you were. Now you're called to live above what you were. Because if you don't, then you're just living the same way. If you live in the world, the earth is affected by cause and effect. What happened then affects you now. But if you break that, if you live above it, you are not bound by cause and effect. You're now a child of heaven. That's a whole new thing. Paul could have been haunted by his past or bound by his past, but he was a soul set free. He just went totally with God's grace. And he said, yeah, this is what I was. But now God gave grace on my life, and I am free. I'm not who I was. I died. That Paul died. And by the way, was still Paul then too. He had two names. That one died, and I'm alive now, and I'm a whole new person. He's the one who spoke of a man who dwelt in the third heaven. Undoubtedly, that was Paul himself. But his life, it wasn't just the experience. His life was lived in the above. People sometimes ask, do you get nervous speaking up here? And I say, not really. I mean, I'll get revved up. I know I'm in higher gear, but not really. Now, in the past, before I came to the Lord, I never spoke before anybody. I mean, or really nothing. But when I came to the Lord, I just followed, Lord, what's next? And where he led me to, they asked me to lead a Bible study, a few people, but then it grew and grew. So it was just so gradual. And I was doing things I never would have done in the old Jonathan. Never. At each point, I had to choose, okay, Lord, I'm just walking. I'm going to follow where you ever lead me. And so it always goes in the new. And that's the point. A heavenly life is going to take you above what you were. That you are not going to be subject to the past. You are making something new in God. God is over the past. He cleanses the past, deals with the past, so you can have a new future. But that you choose that future every time. That in a heavenly life, the earthly law does not have dominion. You are not bound by sin and death, that means the sins of your past and the power of sin and death. You are now in the law of life. So it's not just, it's not just you're fighting the past, you live above it. People live by their experiences, but heaven is above your experiences. That means even in God, so many believers live their lives in a rut. I'm doing this, and I stop stepping out. God calls us to live above our experiences, that we're always supposed to be stepping out. Above every church steeple, above every church or congregational building, there's a sky. What does that tell you? Heaven is above religion. So we're never to live in religion in that sense, the way the world thinks. God is above our ideas, even our ideas about God. He's above it. He's above what we're familiar with, even in the Lord. If our view of God is confined to the four walls of the sanctuary or stained glass windows, then it's not God, it becomes dead. We were in Rome for 1 day and a half. And we went to see St. Peter's Basilica, Vatican, to see and it's gigantic. And there's statues after statues after statues. And then when you go behind in the museum, there's more statues after statues after statues after statues after images after icons after images after statues. Gigantic ceiling. Went into the Sistine Chapel, Michelangelo, Adam and God. I always thought it was on top of it was a dome, and that's all you saw up there. You go in that room, it's one little square, I don't say little, but it's one square in the middle of tons of other squares. It's so busy, it's the busiest ceiling you'd ever see. It's got a million squares of different paintings. And yet, if there was no Sistine Chapel, there's no ceiling, they just took it off. the heavens would be more majestic than what Michelangelo did. Heaven is bigger. The heavenly things of God are bigger than our doctrines. There's a place, obviously, for doctrine, but it's bigger than that. The doctrine barely cannot contain God. Even the word God, and this is in the book of Mysteries, even the word God in Hebrew cannot contain God, and there's something in there that says this word the reality is bigger than the word. He's above our doctrinal understanding, no matter what we think. I remember when a few people got into a particular doctrine and made it their focus, by which they believed that they really understood God. They had it in their doctrine. Their doctrine contained God. And for what I could see, they didn't have it. In fact, they lost something. And one of them gave me a pile of books and said, you got it, you have to read it. And then he asked me, did you read it? I said, no. He said, you have to. I said, no, I don't. He said, why? I said, you see, if you need all these books to prove your doctrine is in the Bible, then the only thing your books prove is that your doctrine is not in the Bible. Because if it was in the Bible, you wouldn't need all these books. You just need a Bible. The fact that you're so into these other things is telling you something. And I've seen in religion, boxing God in, man's doctrines, ideas, regulations, dogmas. Again, doctrine has place. Even guidelines have places, but you cannot box God in it. Then there's no heaven there. There's nothing above. If your doctrine and your theology can contain God, then it's false theology. God is bigger. Doctrine does not contain God. God contains doctrine. There has to be an above. There has to be a mystery. There has to be, Lord, you're bigger than anything I can put into the box. Some believers believe that their doctrines explain everything. No. That's why Paul could write of the unsearchable ways of God. How high is God, Paul talks about. To know, he says, that we might know, you might know that which is beyond knowing. Now, how do you put that together? Does that make any sense? No. But that's the whole point. It's beyond that. To know what is beyond knowing. Well, how do you know what's beyond knowing? By not knowing, by faith, you can know what's beyond knowing.
To find out how you can receive more of Jonathan's teachings, to receive special free gifts, or get in touch, go to hopeoftheworld.org or call toll-free 1-800-YESHUA-1. That's hopeoftheworld.org or call 1-800-YESHUA-1. That's 1-800-937-4821. You can also get more at Jonathan Cahn's Facebook page or write us direct at Hope of the World, Box 1111, Lodi, New Jersey 07644, USA. Hope of the World is dedicated to the goal of spreading God's Word and salvation to every land and people. We do this by spreading the Word throughout the world and sponsoring compassion projects to the most poor and needy around the earth. To get in touch or have a part in God's work, just write to Hope of the World, Box 1111, Lodi, New Jersey 07644, USA. Or go to hopeoftheworld.org or call 1-800-YESHUA-1. That's 1-800-937-4821.